You're continuing the theme of balance, I think, but maybe taking it in your way. Thank you. There should be a microphone next to the clicker.
Hi, everyone. Quite late today, so many interesting information. I know everyone is full, but I will try to be more in practical aspects. I'm a scientist. I'm passionate by the innovation in clinical research, and I have strong affinities in data and in data protection because I strongly believe that this data stays behind the innovation. So the innovation in clinical research, there are a lot of examples. Artificial intelligence and the machine learning, clearly in the diagnostic, using the imaging, the prediction, the major leaps were done there. AI now can predict earlier detection, for example, of cancer, in breast cancer. Still, there are a lot of things that should be validated behind by the medical doctors, but the development is really very fast. Gene therapy, I'm looking at you, you're with Veronica, talking about the genetic data and the potential future advances that it can bring to solve a lot of problematic diseases, like technologies where we can edit the genome, which is still being under development, but shows promising results, these CRISPR techniques. Regenerative medicine, generating tissues for transplantation, or for example, for people who had burned, and we can now generate skin. We can generate from one cell even the cardiac tissue. A lot of biopharmaceuticals, like antibodies, vaccines, of course, this is more classical, which we hear more often. Digital health technologies, which are developing in very fast pace. Besides what we usually know, these rings, the wearable devices, there are also like insulin pumps, which may deliver insulin to the patients suffering from diabetes, and much more. So I will try to navigate through a precise example, like how it happens in the real life. For example, the patient comes to the medical doctor and he has some bad clinical symptoms. And the doctor prescribes a genetic test. And the doctor should provide the healthcare. Then there is also the researchers on the side, which would like to know what genetic variants, it's a little bit similar to your thesis, Veronica, which are the genetic variants, for example, the mutations in the gene and the clinical symptoms. So, in practice, the medical doctor, to be able to interpret the result, the genetic result, because genetic result alone will not be able to help doctor determine, okay, what my patient suffers from. So he needs to associate this genetic data, the genetic test, with the clinical data of the patient, of the clinical symptoms. And then, if the researcher would like to know more about, okay, which other gene variants might generate what kind of symptoms and the severity of the symptoms, they might go to the reference libraries and compare with the known mutations, the genes that they just received the test. So the advantages of reusing and using several types of data combined together are very clear. It will optimize the diagnostic techniques. It will generate personalized medicine, treatment of rare diseases, discover maybe new drugs or enhance drug safety when we are talking about the real world evidence, etc. But also on the other side and more practical side, it will reduce the operational costs and of course the time of the researchers and of the innovators. But let's go back to the example of this researcher who would like to know the association of different genes, variants with the symptoms. So he has to go and to search data from different holders, let's say, from laboratory, the genetic test, clinical data, which can be found at the hospital or patient-generated, so it's not an exhaustive, of course, list of those. And then in the libraries and the databases that already exist. So there are several sources, of course, which imply technical hurdles, like where to find the data, how to find, to access the data, and then to use this data if the data was collected quite a long time ago. On top of that, there are some legal and ethical aspects regarding the sensitivity of the data, which we talked so much today, and of course the format of data, the standardization. And in the mirror of all these players, we don't have to forget that in the center of all this sharing is the individual, that we have to respect the rights of the individual, but also to respect the principles of the GDPR, the transparency, lawfulness, fairness, and the data minimization. And for that, there are a lot of legislative tools which were very nicely presented by Petra, so I'm not going to deep dive in that. But the Data Governance Act, the European Data Act, the proposed regulation for EHDS, and of course on top the GDPR, which is the pillar of all of them, all together, which aims to provide a very secure and trustful environment between all the participants in this sharing and reuse of data. I will not go in details how GDPR allows to reuse the data in practice. Yes, it allows for to process the health data for the provisions of health or social care, public health, scientific purposes. In some cases, it can be processed without any explicit consent. The information should be provided to data subject, etc. And then, if we want to reuse the data, there should be checked for the compatibility of the purposes, the initial one and the further one. And I want to focus more on this compatibility test and specifically the link between the initial purpose and the further purpose of the processing of personal data, and also the context of the processing of personal data, which is related to the expectations of the data subject to whom the data belong. The other points, like the description of nature of personal data, the consequences of data subjects, the appropriate safeguards, I will not focus on it, but because it's more straightforward than the 5 of them. And so, what is compatible should clearly fall within the reasonable expectations of the data subjects. So what are the expectations? The patient comes, the patient expects to have a diagnosis and to treat the disease, but also the patient expects to know who is processing his data or her data, where the data is transferred, if it's transferred, and how the data is protected. So from the GDPR perspective, we go back to the medical doctor. So of course, the medical doctor is the initial controller. So it was the first one who collected directly the data from the individual, from the patient. And then there is a transfer of this clinical data to the researcher. So let's say the researcher, it would be the secondary controller. So in a way, the researcher also collects the data, but indirectly from the individual. We can consider that the researcher will use the data for the secondary purposes, but for the researcher, it will be like initial purpose, you know? So we are like in a circle to determine, so finally, okay, there is the first purpose, the further purpose, and then what are the responsibilities of those two controllers in terms of putting security measures to this data that will be shared. And here I come to more like challenges that we face usually in practice. To check whether the purposes, which were initial one, well, now it's just one of the examples that I provided here, but there might be a lot of initial purposes, if they are compatible with a further purpose, and then if yes, but from which threshold we can consider that it is compatible. And an example, you can use the data, the genetic data, to validate a technique. So there is an innovator that would like to improve a technique of genome sequencing. Second purpose, for example, if these variants of genes, or if the genes underwent any mutations, can predict the symptoms or the course of the disease, and might then influence the adjustment of the optimal treatment. And the question comes, so who should do this compatibility assessment? Is it the researcher who would like to further process the data, or is it the medical doctor who shares the data? And coming to the expectations of the data subjects, so what would be and how to evaluate what would be the reasonable expectations of the data subjects? So EDPB issued some guidelines that there can be, of course, the controllers should assess whether the individuals were properly informed. But there are two types of assessments that could be done. A formal assessment, so to compare the purposes that were initially provided, for example, in frames of a clinical trial in the ICFs, and usually it's provided in a written form, and they are provided by the data controllers. And then a substantive assessment. So it is something beyond these formal statements, and it gives more flexibility and pragmatism. So it's a way also to identify if the further purposes and the initial purposes are compatible. And so to conclude, it is very important to find this balance in this sharing ecosystem to support this innovation in the healthcare. Not to forget about the patient, of course, in the center of it, and the need of collaboration of different experts, so not only the legal, because I think a legal part would be not enough to determine what is the threshold of compatibility in frames of a scientific project. And to ensure, but not in extreme, that the protection of individuals' privacy and rights are respected, but staying also open, not to impede the innovation in life sciences and in the clinical research. So thank you very much.